Being ignored by a woman can feel frustrating, confusing, and even humiliating, but how you respond determines the entire outcome. Most men panic, overanalyze, or try to force attention, and those reactions only deepen the problem. Ignoring is not always about disinterest. It is often a test of emotional strength, confidence, and boundaries. Women notice subtle energy shifts, patterns of behavior, and the way you handle tension. Reacting poorly signals weakness, chasing reduces attraction, and overcompensation diminishes value. In modern dating, where communication is constant and attention is easily available, being ignored can feel magnified. A woman may pull back for many reasons. She may be busy, testing your interest, or evaluating her own feelings. But the mistakes men make in response are what determine whether she loses respect or becomes more attracted. The wrong actions, done out of anxiety or neediness, can destroy attraction instantly, even if she initially liked you. This video is about the 7 critical mistakes men make when a woman ignores them, and how to avoid each one. Each section will break down a common misstep, explain why it reduces your perceived value, and provide insight into how to respond in a way that maintains strength, confidence, and emotional authority. When handled correctly, being ignored is not a crisis. It is an opportunity to elevate your presence, create intrigue, and build respect. By understanding these mistakes and shifting your approach, you'll be able to navigate moments of silence or avoidance without losing control, turning situations where she pulls away into moments that increase attraction. This is about emotional strategy, not games, using calm, deliberate actions to preserve your value and influence the connection in a way that naturally draws her toward you. 1. Chasing her attention. One of the most common mistakes men make when a woman ignores them is chasing her attention. Chasing is often an unconscious reaction, driven by anxiety, ego, or fear of rejection. Many men immediately start sending messages, calling, or overreacting to her silence in an attempt to regain connection. This behavior communicates neediness and insecurity, which are instant attraction killers. Women are wired to notice confidence, calm, and emotional stability, not desperation or overcompensation. When you chase, you signal that your emotional state depends on her actions, and that lack of independence reduces respect. In modern dating, chasing is amplified because communication is instant and constant. Every message sent in desperation, every call made to check in, communicates low emotional authority. Chasing also removes the mystery and tension that naturally draws a woman in. When a man is always available, always reactive, and constantly seeking validation, there is nothing for her to think about or desire. Attraction thrives on contrast, absence, and challenge. If she ignores you and you chase, you hand her control of the dynamic, forcing her into the role of decision-maker and judge. That imbalance creates subtle but powerful disinterest over time. A strong response is the opposite of chasing. Remain calm, composed, and intentionally unreactive. Allow her silence to exist without trying to fill it. By doing so, you create space for reflection and curiosity. She begins to notice the gap your presence leaves, which naturally heightens interest. Chasing also increases tension in the connection. When a woman senses that you are over-invested in her attention, it can feel suffocating or burdensome. She may subconsciously pull away even further. Conversely, when you resist the urge to chase, you maintain emotional authority and signal confidence. That contrast between presence and absence creates intrigue and emotional pull. It also demonstrates self-respect. You are not compromising your emotional stability or priorities to regain immediate attention. Chasing is a reactive, need-driven behavior that weakens your perceived value instantly. Avoiding it allows her to recognize your independence, amplifies attraction, and sets the tone for the rest of the interaction. When handled correctly, silence or distance is not a threat. It becomes a tool to reinforce your presence and make her miss your confidence, consistency, and calm energy. Mastering the avoidance of chasing is one of the fastest ways to maintain control, strengthen attraction, and transform moments of being ignored into opportunities for deeper connection. 2. Overanalyzing her behavior. Another critical mistake men make when a woman ignores them is overanalyzing her behavior. Overanalyzing is a mental trap where you obsess over every text, interaction, or slight change in tone, trying to decode her intentions. Men often replay conversations repeatedly in their minds, searching for hidden meanings or signs of disinterest. This behavior communicates insecurity and mental instability, even if it remains internal. Women pick up on subtle energy shifts, hesitation, or anxiety in your communication. When you overanalyze, you may inadvertently act reactive or cautious, which reduces perceived strength. In modern dating, overanalyzing is particularly dangerous because digital communication provides constant stimuli. Notifications, social media updates, and messaging apps create endless opportunities for misinterpretation. You begin to see problems where none exist, convincing yourself that every pause or lack of response is a personal attack or rejection. This creates tension that leaks into your interactions, often through indirect ways such as passive-aggressive messages, overcompensation, or unnecessary explanations. Overanalyzing also fuels chasing behavior. The more you dissect her actions, the more compelled you feel to respond immediately, justify yourself, or regain her attention. That combination of mental obsession and reactive behavior is an immediate turn-off. A woman may begin to see you as emotionally unstable, insecure, or too dependent on her responses, which undermines attraction. Instead of overanalyzing, the strong approach is to remain calm, detached, and focused on your priorities. Recognize that her silence is not a reflection of your value, but a signal you can respond to strategically. By maintaining mental clarity and not reacting impulsively, you preserve emotional authority and allow her absence to create natural tension. Overanalyzing also robs you of presence in other areas of life. When your focus is entirely on decoding her behavior, you neglect personal growth, goals, and social dynamics, elements that inherently increase your attractiveness. Women are drawn to men who have self-direction and independence. By refusing to obsess over her actions, you create the contrast that naturally draws her attention back. She begins to notice your composure, self-control, and confidence without needing to be the center of your emotional world. Overanalyzing is a subtle but destructive mistake that reduces attraction quietly over time. Avoid it, and your absence becomes a tool to generate intrigue, reflection, and longing. By mastering mental detachment while remaining intentional in your responses, you transform moments of being ignored into opportunities for increased respect, curiosity, and emotional engagement from her. 3. Overexplaining or justifying your actions. When a woman ignores you, many men make the mistake of overexplaining or justifying their actions. This usually happens because of anxiety, insecurity, or the desire to fix the situation quickly. Overexplaining communicates weakness because it signals that your emotional state depends on her perception of you. Women notice this immediately, even if the words themselves seem harmless. When you justify yourself excessively, whether for a delayed response, a prior comment, or simply for not texting enough, you reduce the weight of your presence. In modern dating, where attention is constant and accessibility is high, overexplaining removes mystery and emotional impact. Women are drawn to men who are confident, composed, and intentional in their communication. Overexplaining does the opposite. It conveys neediness, uncertainty, and a lack of emotional authority. It also diminishes attraction because it removes tension. Attraction thrives on subtle unpredictability, independence, and the perception that a man has his own life and priorities. When you feel compelled to justify your actions, you hand over emotional control to her, making her the judge of your value. That imbalance is unattractive. Over-explaining can take many forms: long messages apologizing for delayed responses, detailed justifications about why you did or didn't do something, or excessive clarification of intentions. Each act chips away at perceived strength. The correct approach is to respond minimally, confidently, and with intention. Your words should be deliberate, concise, and neutral, never reactive or defensive. This restraint communicates self-assuredness and emotional control. By keeping explanations short or sometimes even remaining silent, you create a gap that encourages reflection. She begins to notice the absence of neediness, the calm in your presence, and the independence that your behavior reflects. Over time, that contrast makes her think about you more, wonder about your thoughts, and feel the tension that fuels attraction. Over-explaining also communicates that your value is negotiable, which reduces long-term appeal. Conversely, selective, intentional communication signals that you are composed, confident, and emotionally grounded. Women are drawn to men who manage their presence rather than chase validation. Avoiding over-explanation preserves intrigue and authority. Silence or brief, calm responses allow her to reflect, feel curiosity, and eventually miss the emotional weight you bring. In essence, over-explaining is a quick way to lose her interest, while restraint and composure strengthen your presence and increase desire. Mastering this approach transforms moments of being ignored into opportunities to command attention, reinforce value, and create emotional pull without manipulation or drama. 4. Panicking or overreacting. When a woman ignores you, one of the most damaging mistakes a man can make is panicking or overreacting. Panic often stems from insecurity, fear of rejection, or the need for immediate validation. Many men immediately start sending multiple messages, calling repeatedly, or seeking explanations for her silence. Overreaction is equally harmful. Abrupt confrontations, emotional outbursts, or pressuring her to explain her behavior all signal instability. Women notice these responses instantly because they reveal dependence and lack of emotional control. In modern dating, where communication is constant and attention is abundant, panicking creates a sharp contrast between men who remain calm and those who react impulsively. When you panic, you hand over authority of the interaction to her. She begins to feel in control, whether consciously or unconsciously, and attraction diminishes. Overreaction also erodes trust and respect. A woman wants to know that a man can manage himself emotionally, even in tension or uncertainty. If your reactions are extreme or needy, she subconsciously interprets it as volatility rather than passion, which decreases desire. Panicking also reduces your value in her eyes because it signals that her actions, or lack thereof, dictate your emotional state. Confidence is magnetic because it communicates that your worth is inherent, not dependent on external validation. Responding calmly, maintaining perspective, and allowing space for reflection demonstrates emotional authority. She notices the composure, even if she does not consciously articulate it, and her curiosity and longing naturally increase. Overreacting often escalates tension unnecessarily, creating friction rather than intrigue. Calm, deliberate responses preserve mystery, highlight your independence, and encourage her to reflect on her own behavior. Emotional pull strengthens when she sees that your state is not affected by temporary silence or avoidance. Panicking is a short-term reaction that erodes long-term attraction, while restraint and confidence cultivate it. By mastering self-control and resisting the urge to react immediately, you turn being ignored into a strategic advantage. Your calm energy contrasts sharply with the uncertainty she may feel, making her miss your presence more profoundly. Moments of being ignored, when met with poise and self-assuredness, increase respect, curiosity, and emotional investment. Panic and overreaction weaken influence. Composure amplifies it. Understanding this dynamic allows you to maintain control, command attention, and ensure that her silence works in your favor rather than against you, building long-term attraction and emotional engagement. 5. Trying to force a response. Another major mistake men make when a woman ignores them is trying to force a response. This often comes in the form of persistent texting, repeated calls, or pushing for explanations about her behavior. Forcing a response communicates desperation, neediness, and a lack of emotional authority. Women instinctively sense when a man's energy is reactive and dependent on their actions, and that perception diminishes attraction. In modern dating, where communication is constant and attention is readily available, trying to force engagement only amplifies the problem. It puts the woman in a position of control and makes you appear emotionally malleable rather than self-directed. This behavior also kills mystery and tension. Attraction thrives on anticipation and curiosity, but forcing a response removes both. When you overextend in an attempt to get her attention, she loses respect because your actions suggest that your emotional state is negotiable. That imbalance is subtle but impactful. Women are drawn to men who manage their presence intentionally rather than reactively. Forcing a response often triggers resistance or further withdrawal because it violates her autonomy and signals that you cannot manage your emotions independently. The correct approach is to step back, maintain composure, and allow the silence to exist without interference. By not forcing engagement, you create a psychological gap that encourages reflection, curiosity, and emotional investment on her part. She begins to wonder why you are not reacting, which naturally heightens her awareness of your value and presence. Strategic absence works because it forces her to confront her own feelings and desires. She starts to notice what she misses about you: the calm confidence, the stability, and the intentional energy you bring, without you having to chase her attention. Forcing a response also risks creating negative associations. She may start to feel overwhelmed, pressured, or even guilty for not responding, which can erode genuine attraction. Calm detachment, on the other hand, allows her to experience longing without resentment. Over time, your restraint turns the moment of being ignored into a tool for increasing respect, intrigue, and desire. When handled correctly, your absence signals independence and emotional authority, making her more likely to invest emotionally and think about you in your absence. Forcing a response diminishes your influence, allowing space and maintaining composure strengthens it. Mastering this principle transforms a potentially frustrating scenario into an opportunity to increase attraction, emotional pull, and long-term connection without drama or desperation. 6. Complaining or expressing frustration. When a woman ignores you, a critical mistake many men make is complaining or expressing frustration. Complaining often manifests as messages like, "Why aren't you responding?" or "I don't understand why you're ignoring me." Expressing frustration may appear as emotional outbursts, guilt-tripping, or passive-aggressive behavior. Both actions signal emotional instability, neediness, and a lack of self-respect. Women pick up on these cues immediately. Emotional instability and overdependence reduce attraction because they communicate that your happiness or confidence is contingent on her behavior. In modern dating, where attention is abundant and often instant, women are accustomed to men being reactive. Complaining or showing frustration reinforces this dynamic, placing her in a position of control. When you complain, you remove mystery and tension, which are essential components of attraction. Instead of drawing her in, you push her away because the interaction now revolves around your insecurity rather than the natural emotional pull between you. Expressing frustration also damages long-term perception. Women remember how a man made them feel emotionally. Complaining creates negative emotional memory. It may register as pressure, awkwardness, or irritation, undermining attraction. The stronger, more magnetic response is calm detachment and self-composure. By maintaining your emotional authority, you communicate independence and confidence without saying a word. Silence, or minimal measured responses, forces her to reflect on her own behavior and the value of your presence. She begins to notice what she misses, the consistency, calm, and self-assured energy you bring. Complaining or frustration short-circuits this process by immediately resolving tension in a negative way. Emotional pull is created when absence meets reflection, not when it meets reactive attempts to regain attention. By avoiding these mistakes, you reinforce your boundaries, maintain intrigue, and preserve respect. The contrast between your calm composure and her emotional response naturally increases curiosity and desire. Over time, she experiences missing you more intensely because she has no way to manipulate your emotions or demand validation. Complaining and expressing frustration reduce attraction. Composed patience amplifies it. Women are drawn to men who can manage themselves regardless of external circumstances. When you master restraint, maintain confidence, and allow the dynamic to play out without overreaction, her silence becomes a tool that enhances your perceived value. Emotional authority, not emotional dependence, is the foundation of attraction. By avoiding complaints and frustration, you transform moments of being ignored into opportunities to increase her respect, emotional engagement, and long-term desire. 7. Ignoring your own life. The final mistake men make when a woman ignores them is ignoring their own life. Many men become consumed by her silence, spending excessive time thinking about her, scrolling through social media, or waiting for a response. This behavior signals dependence, lack of personal direction, and emotional weakness. Women notice when a man allows her actions to dominate his attention and energy. In modern dating, where distraction is everywhere, men who over-focus on a woman who is ignoring them reduce their own perceived value. Ignoring your life also amplifies other mistakes, such as chasing, overanalyzing, or overexplaining, because you are emotionally invested in her responses rather than maintaining independence. Women are drawn to men with purpose, ambition, and self-direction, qualities that are inherently attractive and magnetic. When you neglect your own life, she unconsciously senses the lack of balance, which decreases attraction and respect. The stronger approach is to focus on your priorities, goals, social life, and personal growth. By being fully engaged in your own world, you create natural contrast. Your absence is no longer a source of panic. It becomes a signal that you have a full, valuable life that is not contingent on her attention. This contrast heightens intrigue, curiosity, and emotional pull. Women notice men who are emotionally self-sufficient, and their silence triggers reflection, longing, and sometimes subconscious desire to reconnect. Engaging fully in your own life while she ignores you also strengthens confidence. You are no longer reactive. You operate from intention and self-respect. Your energy becomes magnetic because it demonstrates that your worth is inherent and independent of external validation. Ignoring your own life reduces attraction because it communicates overdependence, anxiety, and lack of presence. By contrast, maintaining focus on yourself ensures that her silence creates reflection and desire rather than tension or disinterest. Over time, a woman begins to miss not just your attention, but your presence, your energy, and the stability you bring. She notices what she cannot control, your independence and self-direction, and that realization amplifies emotional pull. Mastering this principle turns moments of being ignored into strategic opportunities to increase value, respect, and attraction. By investing in your life first, you make her attention something she must earn rather than take for granted. Emotional authority, personal purpose, and calm composure are far more attractive than chasing or overreacting. Ignoring your own life is a subtle yet powerful mistake. Avoiding it transforms her silence into a tool that strengthens your presence, intrigue, and long-term desirability. When a woman ignores you, how you respond shapes attraction, respect, and emotional engagement. The 7 mistakes: chasing her attention, overanalyzing her behavior, overexplaining, panicking, forcing a response, complaining or expressing frustration, and ignoring your own life, are all ways men unintentionally reduce their value. Each mistake signals neediness, insecurity, or dependence, which diminishes attraction and emotional pull. Women notice these subtle cues instinctively, and they affect how she perceives your strength, composure, and worth. The key to navigating being ignored is emotional authority. Remaining calm, composed, and intentional communicates self-respect and confidence. By avoiding reactive behaviors, you allow her absence to create curiosity, reflection, and desire. Silence becomes a tool rather than a threat. Maintaining focus on your priorities, personal growth, and social life ensures that your energy is independent of her attention, creating a natural magnetic pull. Modern dating rewards men who balance presence with composure, responsiveness with restraint, and attention with independence. When handled correctly, her silence can increase intrigue, deepen emotional investment, and amplify her longing. Instead of feeling frustrated or powerless, you use these moments strategically to reinforce your value. She begins to notice not just your actions, but the emotional weight of your presence, the stability you offer, and the calm authority you embody. Understanding these mistakes and correcting them transforms being ignored from a challenge into an advantage. Your ability to navigate silence with confidence and self-direction elevates attraction, strengthens respect, and positions you as someone she cannot take for granted. The moments she ignores you become the moments that make her miss you, reflect on her own feelings, and appreciate the value you bring. Mastering this dynamic ensures that your presence is memorable, magnetic, and deeply impactful.